Hi, very good.
So this session.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. Am I audible to you?
Absolutely. Clear.
Okay, great. So we are already a few minutes into the session, so I guess we can just begin. We have a bunch of viewers now. Um, So first of all, everyone, hi, I am Deeksha. I am the Senior Content Marketer at EduFund. And the purpose of this session today is to discuss all the mistakes that parents make while saving for their children. As a speaker for today's session, we have Mr. Dastoor with us. He is the Group President and Head of Sales at UTI. He holds double postgraduate qualification in Commerce and Business Administration from Mumbai University and Xavier's Institute of Management, and he holds over 27 years of experience in the financial industry. So welcome to the session, sir. We are looking forward to having a great conversation with you.
Look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So we actually received a bunch of questions from our followers and our users. They have a lot of questions to ask from you. Before we begin, I would like to just talk a bit about EduFund itself. So EduFund is India's first investment and advisory app to help parents save and plan for their children. From school education to college education to Indian to abroad, parents can simply calculate the cost of their child's future education and then plan accordingly. With the help of our saving experts and with the help of the one of the top, top AMCs that we have on our platform, including UTI itself. So, shall we begin the session then?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So the first question is something that came to my mind while I was going through this recent article, which talked about the sudden increase in the cost of transportation fee for schools and colleges. What is your take on this overall inflation when it comes to education in India or abroad altogether?
So, firstly, let me just make it simple. Education is a for-profit business. It's not a not-for-profit, and therefore everything that increases cost is going to be passed on to the consumer, like in other business. And likewise, in this case, the price of petrol has gone to 115 rupees. If otherwise inflation is high and people want to ask for more salary, that cost is going to be passed to a consumer. Any school will operate or college will operate on a cost plus margin model. And therefore, if the underlying costs are going up, the other point I'll make on inflation and education is that it's not restricted to transportation. Take US as an example. For decades, inflation in US was near 0 to 2%. However, education inflation in US has always, over the decades, been double digit. So don't mistake when you think that, oh, inflation is, for foreign education, it does not apply. Another element of inflation that you have to think of is depreciation in currency, particularly when you're talking about studying outside of India. Another inflated cost which you don't realize but is very close with education is the cost of living, cost of transportation, and cost of maintaining a life or lifestyle the minute you leave home for the purpose of education. So you could be living in any part of India, and if you decide that every third month for every festival you're going to fly back home, what we don't realize is how much all of that cost and how inflated that cost can become in the journey of education through those years. Take a simple airline ticket. I fly regularly. Hyderabad, Bombay, which otherwise should cost under 4,000 rupees, at numerous times is closer to 20,000 for one way. For a parent that's paying for that ticket, it's the part of cost of education, So I think inflation in education, while people would focus on the single point of fees or transportation, is a far wider reaching subject, and you must pay attention to every of those elements.
Absolutely right. Well said. There are so many hidden costs in education that parents often, overlook, and they only realize it after their child has started, going to the college at all. You also talked about rupee depreciation, and this is something that we have been hearing in the news. And in fact, the rupee has slipped to up to 82 levels now. So all the parents that have been planning to send their child abroad, saving for their education abroad, how do you suggest they should plan, keeping this depreciation in mind, especially for first-time investors?
So, my response to that would be, the first step is to invest. Okay, if you think you can save and educate your child abroad, it's not going to happen. There's a big difference between saving and investing. So the first step is actually investing. Keeping your money in a bank deposit is not investing. It is going to be eaten up by inflation and taxation. So because because education is always a pre-planned long-term goal, you must choose equity to the level or extent that your risk appetite will allow, but you must choose
Right.
equity as an asset class to invest in. That's point number one. Point number two, it's very simple, you know. If you have a dream which is going to be expensed in dollars, you cannot have an investment that is going to happen in rupees. So to all,
Right.
all parents, I would advise that if you dream to send your child abroad and it's going to cost you between $25,000 and $45,000 in fees in a year, and you're going to do that for 4 years, you know you have a target of $200,000 just in fees, not for affiliated expenses. Now,
Right.
what is established is the quantum, what is established is the currency. What is variable is that you are dependent on the inflation which impacts exchange rate. Okay. So
Right.
for a dollar dream, you have to build a dollar asset. And for most people that ask me, should we invest abroad? Should we buy the NASDAQ? Should we buy, S&P 500? I have only one question to ask them. Do you have a dollar dream? And the answer would be most definitely yes. And there is your
Yeah.
answer. To the extent. So, normally the next question would be how much? For how long? And my answer is simple, to the extent of fees, to the extent of incidentals of living expenses over there, to the extent of
Right.
buying tickets in dollars, bhai aap utna to kar do, then life will figure it out.
Right.
Protect yourself from this currency element to that extent. Finally, and if I may, just divert to a more basic subject, which is currency. Currency is a commodity. It is
Absolutely.
determined by demand and supply in the short term. Okay.
Right.
If there are too many dollars coming into India, the supply of dollar is up, the price will drop of the dollar. In the long term, currency is a interest rate differential neutralizer. So in India, if you have 6% interest rate, and in US you have a 2% interest rate, this 4% differential is going to be neutralized by the Indian currency depreciating 4%. Be aware, it
Right.
does not happen in a linear manner. It does not mean that ye saal mein the gap was 3%, so this year it will drop only 3. There'll be 3, 4, 5 years where it does not drop, and then suddenly one fine day it drops 15, and you wonder what happened. It didn't happen overnight. It was the cumulative effect of those years where it was pressed down and the spring back happened, and that's why you see this
Right.
sudden depreciation. But that's on that one.
Right. And very well said that if you for a dollar dream, you need to create a dollar asset. Great T-shirt code, I would say. And you also mentioned about equities as well. So my next question would be, what do you have to say about the equities being safe or not? Or for first-time investors, do you think there are other options for them to save for their child's education, keeping inflation in mind?
I'd say as much as the devil inflation is, equally is taxation.
Right.
And you have to bear in mind the impact of both of these elements in your investments, whether it is for your own retirement or it is for this specific purpose of education. Okay? Equity. Over the last 40 years or 45 years in India, that markets and indices have got established, or over 100 years in other developed markets that there are, has repeatedly proved in time that it is the only asset class that will allow you to beat taxation and inflation and allow your wealth to grow. It's an proven fact. So that's point number one. Point number two, for new investors, what you will never be able to do is time the market. So often asked, is this a good time? In 2024, there are going to be general elections. In this year, there are the state elections. This is happening between Ukraine and Russia. Is this a great time? The honest truth answer is, I don't know. I will never know. And anyone who claims to know is only guessing or lying. Therefore, as a first-time investor, wanting to come in for a specific goal of education or otherwise, I would recommend the systematic investment plan route. You have an income every month. Invest from that income every month. Invest in an asset class that has time and again over decades and centuries proven to beat inflation and taxation, and allow your wealth to grow and accumulate from there. That's the simple basic thing about equity. Coming to India and Indian equities, we are a great country. We've got a long runway of growth. We are a population of over 140 crore people. We are a great consumption story, and we are also a great manufacturing story to feed that consumption. Over the years, I see India being a great, mind you, not the only engine of growth in the world, not always the fastest growing engine in the world or chugging along engine in the world, but clearly India is a great growth story. Within that, markets at times would have run ahead in valuation. You'll have to be patient. But making money out of equities is not a 1 year or a 3 year. It's a long term, rather I'd like to call it a lifelong journey of making money.
Right. Well, also, we have a few new viewers joining in, so I would just like to give them a brief about what's happening here. I am Deeksha, your host for today's session, and today we are discussing about the mistakes that parents usually make while planning for their child's education, saving for their child's education. And as the speaker today for the session, we have Mr. Dastoor from UTI AMC today with us. So as you also talked about, tax saving and all that, and this is a question that we also get a lot, and I'm sure a lot of parents also want to know the tax saving purpose of investment. So, like, how can an investor save tax along with saving for their child's education?
So, the answer to this subject is, we take that one step forward from what we just spoke, which is the importance and relevance of investing in. You have many options to save, invest, and get benefit of liberal taxation. Take PPF, Public Provident Fund, as an example. Correct?
Right.
Often asked, is it a good thing to do? I say always it's a good thing to do. Everything is good if done in the right proportion. Unfortunately, in PPF, you can't invest more than 1,50,000 in a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you have aspirations of sending your children abroad, 1,50,000 in a year is not going to be enough savings or investments today, even in the long term. Okay. So then it brings me back to saying the same asset class, and within the equity asset class, the mutual fund platform and specially granted schemes which provide tax efficiency for people. Some of them are tax efficient upfront. So if I invest in ELSS fund, I can get up to 1,50,000 under 80C a benefit. Okay. When that money matures, it is taxed with indexation. Okay, but I get the benefit of indexation over there. However, within the mutual fund ambit, there are a specific category of fund called children's plan. Now, and UTI has a specific one. I'm not going to try and sell that product to this audience. I'm going to give you the features for you to think hard about. The plan and the way it is designed is that, first of all, anyone can invest for a child. That investment can continue till the child remains a child and not an adult. So at 18, that money is made available. If I don't trust the parents of the child and I want to actually, donate, I can decide who will control that money at 18. I can decide that this child will not get the money as a lump sum in its hand or her hand or his hand. They will get it in parts over 18, 19, 20, 21, in 4 parts over 4 years, which funds directly their education. And here is the icing on the cake, which is all the money that you invested through that journey of the individual being a child is tax-free in the hands of the child when the child turns 18.
Right.
Now, how do you get a better combination of, one, equity as an asset class, two, long-term wealth accumulation, three, control over the end use of the money, four, that entire pot of money at that point of time coming to tax-free. Wow. So
Yeah.
there are, like this, many options available for investors to partake.
Right. Absolutely. And this one thing that we also keep telling to the parents that we come across as well, that investment is for everyone. You don't have to be rich to start investing. Well said about that. I would also like to ask our viewers to send in their questions if they have any. We have about 10 minutes left for the session, so please start dropping your questions for Mr. Dastoor. Before we address those questions, sir, the Indian market is very volatile currently. Also, the global economy is also going through recession. So, in such scenarios, how would you suggest an investor, plan their investment?
Again, good question, but a very simple answer to it. Firstly, you will never be able to time the market. So when you are talking about recession in the world, yes, it's a very high inflationary environment in the world. Thankfully, it has cooled down in India. That inflation has led to interest rates being raised to an extremely high level. High interest rates will definitely translate into contraction of the economy, and in certain cases, they are raised to such a point where the central bank themselves want to put the economy into a recession. Okay, so that when you essentially when you raise interest rates, what are you trying to do? You are trying to reduce demand. So if I was going to borrow money and buy a car, buy a house, or even buy a phone at interest rate of 8%, now when it becomes 12 or 13, I will either, my budget reduces automatically. And that's how you kill demand, okay, to that extent. Others will not buy, and therefore they will delay the demand. That's how you slow down an economy, or you do it severely to push it into recession, such that inflation comes in control. Okay. Currently, the world is not co-joined but fragmented or disjointed. There are certain markets like Europe, US, that are facing unprecedented inflation. Their central banks have pushed up interest rates to make sure they lower demand. And even if that means pushing their own economy into recession, they're not shy of doing that. Okay. India is a completely different story. And the reason that India has stood strong among all the global markets in 2022 is because India is a different story. However, please remember the market, okay, is finally a neutralizer and will go and grab opportunity wherever it sees. So while India did not fall in 22, okay, please remember, if inflation is lesser of a problem in the world, it doesn't mean when money comes gushing back to opportunity, the opportunity may not see money rushing to India, because US has fallen by 30+%, Europe has fallen extremely severely, China has taken a sharp beating. Money will seek that opportunity. Does India remain a great growth story on its own? It does. On an immediate basis, you might get challenged in terms of immediate quest for returns.
Right. Very well said. We received a question here from Sagar. Sagar wants to know if there are any suggested asset allocations for parents whose children are approaching the higher education within 5 to 7 years, and they're targeting 20 lakhs, keeping moderate risk appetite.
Yeah. So I think, it, I don't know, when people say it's moderate risk appetite, how do you establish what is moderate, moderately high, high, very high, extremely high? I think the thing that, the only thing that should establish among, other smaller parameters is time, which should determine your risk appetite. If I have only 5 or 7 years, even if I was a big risk taker, for this goal of this 20 lakhs, I don't have the ability to take risks. Okay. But my risk, so my submission to people always is keep your money. Grandmothers used to do a wonderful thing. They used to have in their drawers multiple envelopes, right? And they used to keep those envelopes and say, "Ye dhobi ka paisa hai. This is for the maid servant. This is for this guy. This is for bazaar." Same way, investors need to bucket their money and need to express different levels of risk taking for each of those buckets. For a 5 to 7 year horizon, I believe you cannot take excessive amount of risk. Okay. And to that end and that reason alone, I'd say moderate risk is a good idea. I would recommend that you have at least 35 to 40% of your assets in equity. And every time in this remaining 5-7 year journey, keep one bearing in mind. Don't get greedy or don't get fearful. If you reach your goal of 20 lakhs before the end of 7 years, please first take that 70 lakhs and then put it in a bank deposit, no problem, because that's a short expense that you have to do, an expense that you cannot take responsibility for. Okay. If markets don't give you return in year 1, year 2, year 3, and year 4, still do not get fearful and run away from the market. It will reward you in time. Okay. And every time the market does not reward you, the probability of it happening in the future only keeps increasing in normal conditions for sure, unless it's exceptional. So yes, 40% equity allocation for a 5-year, 20 lakh goal is a very good allocation, is what I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah, investment is a long-term plan, and this is something that new investors have to keep in mind. Hope, Sagar, you got your answer. You can also check out multiple risk-based options by UTI and some of the other best AMCs in India on the EduFund app, and you can also consult our saving experts to get more information on that. So because unfortunately we are running out of time for this session, do you have any final words for our viewers just to sort of conclude the session, or some master tip for our parents to say for their children?
So let me give you this one simple tip that I can leave you. From the last 42 years that Sensex was created in 1981, okay, it has given a return of 15.5%.
Right.
Remember this 15 number, 15,000 rupees a month, put aside for 15 years, and you expect to actually get a 15% return, you will end up with a corpus close to about 1.6 crores. Okay. So when people ask me what is the formula for making money, the secret sauce is discipline. That's all you need. Okay. Dheeraj or dharya, patience and perseverance. And that's the only closing tip that I can give. Money making, Rome can never be done in a day. It takes a long time, but it's a very simple task. It does not need too much money. It just needs patience and discipline.
Absolutely. And knowledge as well. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dastoor. It was great talking to you, and hope our viewers also got a lot of insights through your experience and knowledge of the industry. And thank you so much for joining the session.
Bye.
Hope you have a great day.
You too, and to all the viewers, have a great evening and do remain safe.
Absolutely. And do check out the EduFund app from the link in bio. See you all there. Thank you. Bye-bye.